library has two main directions, theory and practice, like model making for working with shapes and the library for working with text and theory. And we thought that Italian practice and tradition is combining those two approaches in almost in some practices actually. And Fosbury Architecture is definitely that practice. And it's also important to emphasize that Claudia not only reading the lecture today, but there is also a 3 days workshop which is ongoing now in library, and the whole month is called Ordinary Architecture, which focuses on ordinary architecture, the places where people actually live rather than iconic buildings, and it's also interesting that today simultaneously is discussion of the Cascade as a place of very iconic and special place, and here we are collected to discuss ordinary architecture. So the presentation will be tomorrow in the same place. We invite all of you to discuss the results and the process, because we don't finish the topic, we only start. And please welcome Claudia Mainardi, our lecturer today.
So thank you very much, it's a pleasure being here, and thank you once again for the wonderful invitation and occasion. What I'm gonna, let's say, tell you today is, as the title site, is a long story short about let's say, the story of the studio, which was actually born 11 years ago. So my name is Claudia, and I am I'm here speaking on behalf of a group of 5 people. Later on, you're gonna see also them in the picture. We are called Fosbury Architecture, and the guy you see here in the picture is Dick Fosbury, or better, the one from whom we stole the name. As you might know, Dick Fosbury was an average high jumper. An athlete who actually was kind of mediocre without having exceptional skill in the high jump. But basically, he was the one who invented the first back technique. So he, for the first time, jumped with his back. And this made him won the golden medal at the Olympic Games in 1968. What our group saw in this character and in the Fosbury flop is not so much an hint to innovation, but rather an invitation to look at the obstacle with a lateral point of view and to try to overcome the obstacle, in fact, turn it your back or through a different point of view. This is a nice email that we received a few years ago from Dick Fosbury's roommate at the college. And in his encouraging message, he told us very personal anecdote on the difficulties of Dick Fosbury at the beginning of his career. Let's say this email is let's say how we got also some intimate image that about that in fact his ex-roommate shared with us. Fosbury was founded in 2013 when we were still students, and it was born as a sort of platform through which we could work together. We thought that the horizontal structure of the collective at the moment could be the best form to oppose a labor market that, especially at the time, seemed not eager to welcome us, as the low salaries and unpaid internship at the time could certify. Moreover, in fact, becoming a collective allow us to move away from the rhetoric of the architect hero, so the only personality, the one who, like the lonely mind on top of the design process, and instead think and do stuff without, so to say, an authorship clear. At the time we were in 8, we were quite young, so there were Marco, Federico, Giacomo, myself, Alessandro, Nicola, Veronica, and Antonio. Well, as you'll see, then in life things change, so 3 of them left, and now still it's 5 of us, but you'll see the ones who remain afterwards. When we were still in 8, so at the very beginning, this is one of our truly collective projects we did. Sort of periodical fanzine that will be a sort of a manifesto of our practice. So we wanted to somehow speak out loud about, or to tell, and to be, to try to be part of the, so to say, to tell about our opinion, our feelings, at the same time feeling in a way rejected by the system itself. So we wanted, in fact, to create a sort of manifesto in points, in issues. The only point is that we had no money to print the fanzine. So the funny story is that we made a deal with a local kebab shop, the kebab shop which actually was really close by the university. And he agreed on having our fanzine printed on the back of his menu. So basically we ended up having it printed for free in 25,000 copies. And let's say that with ROARC, we wanted, in fact, to question the current state of architecture, and especially the condition of the young architect, so the one that I was also speaking about earlier. Especially if you have to think about Italy, when at least I'm speaking about more than 10 years ago. It was rather after the 2008 financial crisis, which actually impacted the country quite strongly. Italy is, because of the amount of architects per person, is one of the most challenging country and contexts where to practice architecture. This situation, in fact, has also impacted Fosbury and led us to leave Italy, at least 3 of us, for other countries. Still, of course, remaining in contact and working as a collective remotely mainly. It's funny the fact that until I would say 2020, this picture, which actually was our photo portrait, is actually a collage, not a real photo, because we were basically never together. This until 2020, when we all came back to Italy, and this time allowing us to make a proper portrait, but this is another story. So coming back to, let's say, and trying to make a sort of a brief excursion of our work, which was also kind of interesting while I was putting together the presentation before for this lecture, and which let me realize the fact that I don't know exactly what and how, but the scale of the project, the interest, the group dealt over time changed considerably. So the image you see here is an extract of our second project ever. It's called Potlatch, And at the time, again, as I was saying, we were still students. And we were feeling somehow the frustration about the amount of work that generally you produce in offices for competitions and other kind of works. That at one point, especially when the project is over or when you lose a competition, then they are forgotten. And there are then therefore huge amount of works that are forgotten or never used again. So what we decided to do was to make a sort of call for scraps. So call for, let's say, drawings which were forgotten in some part of the computer. And this call was spread out to all over the world. We received hundreds of submissions. And what we decided to do was two things. On the one hand, we decided to create an open platform where to actually share and make these drawings available. I'm sorry that it's not that visible, but you could really find any kind of let's say, from details to very large drawings, and things which can actually be useful for others for their own drawing. And this has been shared completely, making it available to anyone for free. At the same time, let's say, after having created such an archive, in order to sublimate and reaffirm the dignity of the works, we decided to assemble them in a unique collective drawing, so making a sort of an araz, a sort of painting in itself with all these scraps, which we also had the occasion to then exhibit in Athens years later as a sort of wireframe panorama. Let's say that apart from these two, let's say, projects I told you about, the beginning of our work was determined by, let's say, a series of competition, as probably everyone does. And the scale of competition we were dealing with, probably also because of the school, which is Politecnico di Milano, which is very much into urban scale. They were also dealing with quite huge and urban visions. I'm speaking about vision because, in fact, also explaining you again probably the relationship with Fosbury. It is also something that we somehow realized later on, is that every time we read the task of the competition or the mission of the competition, I don't know why or how, but instead of trying to answer it in a straight way, or probably in the way in which we were required to do, was always to find a different way to answer the competition. In the example of this one, for example, here we are in Porto, and let's say the brief asked to reactivate a factory. Yet we didn't have the time, the chance to go there, visiting the site, so we had to find a way to face the project differently. In that sense, we started redrawing a big part of the city. Here you see, like from Casa da Musica to Plaza dos Aliados, even though here you just see a piece. And it was just through the redrawing of the city that actually we understood that the city was affected by one main disease, which was the amount of the many abandoned buildings. So it was not just the problem of the factory, but of the abandoned city. And therefore, our answer was not just focusing on the factory, but it was a huge strategy in 2 steps for the whole city. And I think that the reason why Fosbury kept going for a while is that instead of telling us, okay, you're crazy, you're not answering in the way we wished the competition, they were awarding us, never with the first prize, but they were awarding us, and I guess that these gave us a push to keep going and doing a second one. This second competition, well, actually it's not properly a competition, but still an urban vision, and it was, I guess, our first participation at the Venice Biennale, in this case at the Venice Pavilion. Here, let's say, we have been asked to make a vision for Marghera. Marghera is basically the beast of Venice, is the productive side of Venice. So if Venice is the beautiful island, there is a production harbor which actually lead and let Venice work. So the idea of this municipality was to reconvert the petrochemical plants into a new part of the city. Yet this will have require a lot of energy and economy consistent how polluted the area is. So also in this case, instead of answering what they were asking, our answer was instead, and our strategy was instead to suggest them to leave everything as it was. So basically doing nothing and giving the area back to nature and building a wall to actually contain the pollution, to leave it apart as a sort of contaminated site, but still, which the humans can't anymore can't live with, but maybe other let's say beings can. They ask us to also make a maquette, which as inspiration we use Pratone, as you might know, is like this Italian, let's say, in a way, very prominent and well-known reference from the 70s. And at the same time, we got lost in this huge drawing. I mean, we really loved drawings, especially at the time. Now we are a bit more lazy, but yes, where actually everything was detailed. We were used to start from a very big vision, and then we were in 8 at the moment. So we could split the drawing in quite some and take the time to and relax while drawing and while producing the what we had in mind. This is instead, so this the winning proposal for Europan 15. I don't know, maybe you are familiar with Europan, which is this like European, pan-European competition, which actually was the first and probably only, at least so far, winning competition. I mean so far, because after this we stopped. Maybe when we'll restart, I don't know. And I think it determined a kind of step, a kind of milestone in our production. I think that this competition gave us the possibility to, let's say, start putting on paper a series of observations on the progressive blurring of the public and private sphere and its impact on architecture, which from this moment on, let's say, let us also change the scale of our intervention from the urban one to a more domestic and interior one. As consequence of the project, in fact, we started a long research that we then pursue for the last for the 7 years after. A research that therefore we started before the COVID, and which in a way we felt after the COVID as a sort of prophecy, in the sense that we could see a sort of quite some intuition that then became reality, unfortunately. Of course, there is no time to go too much into that research, but very, very synthetically, our assumptions were that, on the one hand, thanks to the social media and the speed of information guaranteed by the internet, in general, we are witnessing an incredible flattening of taste. a condition fully embodied in the IKEA model and which inhabit the Airbnbs of the whole world. So if you somehow, what we notice is that, for example, these are a series, probably you can't see it very clearly, but we picked the city of Copenhagen because we were doing a research there, and a series of Airbnb, and basically all the houses look the same because they were all white, all using like furniture IKEA, all like maybe like a plant or few other paraphernalia to make it a bit more precious, but they were basically all the same. At the same time, another thing, while this is happening in the domestic sphere, at the same time there is another interesting thing happening, so that we are witnessing a massive domestication of everything. So the more we spend our life at home, working and living, the more our outer spaces tend to look like domestic space. If you think about Google offices, but also now there are, at least in Italy, there are banks, there are bars, which they look like homes, where actually you have sofas, you have like environment which reminds the domestic one. So, and these, of course, are creating, so to say, a sort of, especially this first one, is what is creating is, if we think as architects, is of course a general flattening, a general, in terms of taste, where everything seems together, you can be everywhere, but basically without noticing the differences. And as a sort of, while researching, while dealing with this, let's say that this intuition let us look for a sort of an alternative, as a sort of antidote to this low price and easy to assemble situation. And this brought us to look at the one called environments. Or the conditions in between furniture and space. In the preface of the New Domestic Landscape, Emilio Ambas, in fact, defines environments more or less as adaptable enough to permit private and communal events, yet fixed enough to permit the reenactment of individual and social rituals. We created a huge catalog with more than 400 historic examples, ranging from the Renaissance to present days, passing through the prolific 70s, and including, of course, examples from the Middle Age to the current days. And this also led us to even design our own series of environments, which we call environments of resistance for social individuals. So here you have a conversation pit for communal gathering, a bath unit reminiscent of our, let's say, a prototype we've done for Leeuwarden, which was the winning competition, a meditation pot, a king-size bed, a study pot, basically a studiolo, a pregadio for temporal and secular faithfuls, and a boudoir. These were the ones we envisioned, but of course, like the list could continue. And we've been lucky enough, I mean, I didn't insert, was a bit stupid, I didn't insert it, but we've been lucky enough to actually prototype one of them for let's say, a temporary and a sort of prototype and work we've done in the Netherlands a few years ago. J'ai pris amour, which is the title of this project, is a research project that somehow is a materialization one-to-one of the ideas outlined after, let's say, the investigation of the environments, and following this research. It was really the period in which we were researching the domestic. It was conceived as a proposal for our contribution. I mean, we have been asked to take part of the 2017 Chicago Biennale. And we thought it was the good occasion to try to materialize and to try to give space and shape to our ideas in relation to the research we were pursuing. So that was an occasion for us to dig into the condition of the YouTubers, which were actually moving into Twitch, and now I'm gonna explain you why. Why? Because to us they were an epitomatic after effect of the commodification of the domesticity, where basically there is no boundary anymore between working and living. The YouTuber, in fact, is it's a work, I mean, you can teach me actually, but because you are younger, I mean, many of you are younger than me, but it's a work in itself. So people can spend their time 24/7 in front of their computer, in their rooms, making profit out of it. They have global reach, and they work primarily from home, making an unprecedented use of their private space. Their bedroom, in fact, is not merely a place where to sleep, but it is rather an office and a workstation, a recording studio and a set, basically a curated place for the representation of one's internet character. And we thought that this was incredibly interesting, I mean, at least as phenomenon to be better investigated. While looking for an archetype of a private space yet used for personal representation that could serve as a reference for our investigation, we decided to look at the Renaissance studiolo, and to more particular to Federico da Montefeltro one as the epitome of this. To express the aim idea, and what we decided to do was to redraw, in fact, one-to-one, the room of a YouTuber character, which we invented. Redrawing, in fact, every detail which could have characterized the daily routine of that fictional character. So from her, because it was a lady, workstation and the computer, the chair, then there was like the library, the bookshelf with all the books, and actually defining and drawing one by one all the books. We decided to have a sort of lead strip with a text which had to deal with, and was a sort of message we want to convey. So everything, this is more or less a diagram which is referring, which basically is a sort of legend, referring, it's impossible for you to read, but telling exactly what is what. Yeah, this is basically it. I think that what was kind of, it was the first time that we were experimenting this technique, which we actually never used it afterwards because it was, I guess, crazy in terms of process. But a bit like Federico da Montefeltro or in the Renaissance, they could make it. We gave three-dimensionality to a 2D surface, and originally the idea was born because, and this is a funny story, a sort of anecdota, because we were young, we were the youngest participants to the Biennale, and instead of giving us a proper space for our exhibition, they gave us the corridor, which was a sort of, for them, a sort of leftover. And to us instead of saying okay, but yeah, but what can we do in this corridor? We try to, in a way, elevate this space, and in fact, like give three-dimensionality to one which actually was kind of how to say, narrow. like just to, I mean, I don't know if this can be of interest, but it's, I mean, if maybe you are wondering, everything has been printed on cardboards. So we took this alveolar cardboard, and it was a long process of defining, of course, because we are a bit obsessed with these, like the right tone, the right thickness of every drawing of the lines, and so on and so forth, because, of course, we are not used to print on cardboard. Printing on paper and printing on is a completely different story. So we flew to Chicago with all our 20, if I'm not mistaken, panels, and it was extremely easy to then attach them, and the exhibition was done, because although while you enter there, it seemed entering, in fact, a proper space. Let's say that while since Chicago, we have started to participate in an ever-increasing number of biennials and triennials. So in this way, I mean, I guess that it was kind of a fluid move, the fact of moving from competition, large-scale projects to first the domestic as interest, and then also in scale, in terms of scale of work. Let's say, this, let's say, while dealing with, as I was saying, like while dealing with exhibition or with temporary works, both as, let's say, exhibition designers, participants, sometimes as also curators, this presented us with another very important challenge, which is the one of reusing the materials, considering like the high energy intensive impact of this kind of project. This led us develop different kind of strategies. And on one hand, and this is the case of a series of projects I'm gonna show you first, is the one of using and trying to nobilitate materials which born as quite poor and generally used in the construction industry, by asking the partners, generally partnership and contractors, to let's say, to give us the materials as loans, and most of the time returning the materials back once the project are done. A case in point, so let's start from this project was realized for the Milan Art Week in 2017, if I'm not mistaken, in which, like, when asked to build a pavilion in the garden of the museum that had to last for only a few days, and really low money, we found an agreement with a supplier of Dalmatiner, which is this foam material you generally use to, let's say, isolate your building from the heating. So this led us realize basically the wall pavilion at zero cost, zero waste, because then we return the material back. And at the same time, considering the material and the capability of the material itself, its kind of softness, it allows us to also reach shapes which other material couldn't. In the case of this installation, instead, this is another installation more recent, which was like the setup for, let's say, an exhibition for 10 young artists. The location was quite unconventional, as you can see, within a church. And also in this case, the premises were like, unfortunately, the low budget, and the fact that we had to think about the cycle of these materials. Starting from this assumption, we managed to deal with the project, basically using just two materials. On the one hand, a lightweight cellular concrete blocks. So basically these very light white blocks of concrete you generally use for construction. And at the same time, an elastic plastic film that is generally used to pack the concrete block themselves. So using the columns and the pillars as an anchor point, the film basically enclosed the central space, creating room between the naves to house the artworks, creating a sort of backgrounds, while the blocks were assembled into plinths, platforms, walls, as stereometric elements to support the artworks. And also in this case, both materials were completely recycled and reintegrated into the production cycle at the end of their life cycle back to the manufacturer once the exhibition has been over. Another example of this attitude of working, dealing with temporary projects is Cubo. This is the title we gave to the project. Or a DJ set for the after party of an electronic music festival in Sicily. Again, also in this case, the project was made up of only a few elements, one taken from a supplier waste, and the other from which has been, so to say, elevated from its normal use. So the first is, as you can see, a very poor, cheap, and light fabric that is generally used, at least in Italy. I don't know if here as well. When sun is extremely strong, so therefore to protect greenhouses or cars. The other one, so the one that instead, the second element, which we borrowed, was these, let's say, metal pipes, which are generally used for scaffolding. This is the final result. Probably with the light you can't see that well, but in which like a key figure, a key element was given by the inclusion of the light. So the use of LED light. Since as the event started at 3 a.m. and ended at 10 a.m. more or less, it made, of course, the dark and light contrast its strongest point. What was at stage was in fact a cage of light, completely covered by a reflective sheet, the one I showed you earlier, during the night, which gradually revealed the scene from, let's say, down, I mean, basically leaving the tent uncovered little by little during the night. So slowly and gradually rising up, revealing in this sense who was the DJ hiding behind the scene. And these are just a few shots. As a final example of an exhibition design made from basically made 100%, I would say, from recycled materials. This is a project we have been that has been conceived following an invitation by a gallery in Vienna. In this case, the commission, so to say, asked us to both take care of the content, so what we want to exhibit, but also of the exhibition design itself. And we thought it could have been a great occasion to actually use the space itself as both content and exhibition design. So basically create content through the exhibition design itself. Yet we couldn't imagine at the beginning, so we had a mood in mind, but we didn't know precisely which could be the right material to be used for this occasion. In this case, what was determining for the final result of the project was the collaboration with one of our suppliers, which is one with whom we collaborate very often. I don't know if also here in Yerevan there is something similar, but since a few years, because of this awareness in terms of reuse and let's say energy waste and so on, there is a lot of care, and there are rising these shops, suppliers, in which whose job is actually to recycle material from previous exhibition setups or fashion shows and so on, and then sell it again for really low price. This is actually what happened to us, because we've been lucky enough to went rather after they just took some materials from fashion shows, more specifically Prada ones. So we managed basically to have high quality purple fur for basically no money. And for this reason, we decided to take a lot of it to the point of, in fact, covering the entire room or what we needed. We drove to Vienna. We brought all these materials, so we packed all these fur into this. Here you can see some images of the installation setup, and here is let's say a picture of the completed installation, in which the 50 square meter gallery was, as I was saying, entirely covered by fur, and which actually we could manage to create an immersive yet performative environment where actually people could not only benefit from the content displayed, but they could also enjoy it by occupying the space in a sort of unconventional way. Let's say that this attention and awareness of responsibility for the energy resource impact of this type of temporary events naturally found its highest expression when we were faced to deal with the curatorship of the Italian pavilion at the Venice Biennale in 2023. Taking in consideration basically, let's say, the premises and the impact and probably also the meaning and why we do exhibition and what should be their impact and their purpose from the conception till its realization. So, I mean, generally when we speak about, when we tell in depth about the Italian pavilion, it's 1 hour and a half just for this. So it's not what I want to do it now, but I try to give just a few hints to let you understand what we have done. So the way in which we conceived the Italian pavilion was as a sort of an occasion of design for the people invited, surpassing the format of an encyclopedic exhibition, and as a sort of photograph a generation that is trying through its daily practice to find what architecture means. For the first time, the Italian pavilion became sort of an opportunity to implement pioneering projects. By pioneering projects, I mean concrete and real actions addressed to local communities and territories. So all these projects happen for real in the territories throughout the peninsula. And for this reason, we used a substantial part of the public funds to trigger new processes or to enhance existing projects by adding a new chapter. Moreover, again, aware of the temporality, I mean, as I was saying, the temporary events of this magnitude can be particularly extractive in terms of energy and resources. We have envisioned an expanded time horizon which could have gone beyond and started before the conventional 6-month duration of the Venice Biennale. I think that our role, let's say, in this process, on the one hand, was that of facilitators between different constellations of agents. And on the other hand, we try to act as a sort of promoters of a network of migrating intelligences in the service of a shared project in which, of course, we also felt part. We selected 9 practices, 9 architectural practices, asking them to develop 9 site-specific projects in territories we also identified, and about which I will also tell you in a while. These 9 architectural practices have been selected on the basis of mainly 3 parameters. So the research they were carrying out, the design attitude they express in their everyday practice, and the territories in which they intervene. So these 9 firms represented a sort of incomplete, in our opinion, list of Italian practitioners whose practice lies along the perimeter of what is considered architecture. In fact, they define themselves collectives, agencies, atelier, research studio, etc. So practices in which they also build architecture, but where they not just build as final outcome of their production. And in order to make the project credible transdisciplinary products, we paired each practice with what we call an advisor, or a professional figure from other fields of creativity. They were artists, performers, food and AI experts, writers, filmmakers, and so on and so forth. Once the couple were formed, as mentioned, each group, each couple, was asked to intervene in specific places, representative of conditions of fragility or transformation along the peninsula. Places where they have already worked, or to which they were related by affinity in terms of research topics, practice, or geographic area. And finally, in order to root each project in the territory, each of them collaborated with a number of incubators or local actors, such as public and private associations, museums, and cultural institutions. In general, let's say that the 9 projects constituted this stage of what we like to call an unprecedented geography spread across the peninsula that ideally expanded the boundary of the Italian pavilion beyond Venice. Therefore, in our opinion, representing for Italy a sort of laboratory. The project that have been produced in the 9 different territories investigated a renewed form of public space, so to say, shifting the gaze to neglected or unexpected places, legitimizing them as spaces which could become and consider public space for real. These spaces were like the lateral facade of a church, a World War II bunker, an unfinished public building, a natural reserve, a plant nursery, an abandoned church, and its related garden, and the rooftop of a city. I mean, it's a pity I can't go in depth, but otherwise it will be too long. Still, if you're a bit interested, we still have the Instagram page as well as the website. Or if you are curious, I can tell a bit more later. What maybe I can show you, it's a bit shorter, and it's generally what we do not show in lectures, because for us the project is what happened outside and not what happened in Venice. But maybe it can be interesting for once to tell you instead, since basically the most part of the money has been spent to create something real, one-to-one, then how to deal with the pavilion, because at the end we have been asked to do also something within the pavilion. This was the entrance. And as first of all, I mean, I don't know how familiar you are with the Italian pavilion at the Venice Biennale, which is the biggest one because it's really huge. It's all over, I mean, it's more or less 1,000 square meters. And we started by leaving the first space completely empty. This, of course, as sort of to really make it, let's say, to let it feel and to make it concrete, what I was just saying. So the fact that the most part of money have been spent elsewhere. At the same time, to somehow give space and give the possibility to appreciate the architecture of this pavilion, which generally, don't ask me why, but the Italian pavilion is by history generally completely covered, so no one actually have seen how this was actually constructed. And this allow us to somehow show through this in this big video projection, a sort of, let's say, prequel of what happened before the pavilion started. So the works which were happening in the territories and which started already a few months earlier. While overcoming, let's say, the first room, you enter a second one. And you enter instead in a complete different environment, which house together, in comparison, and for the first time, the synthesis of the 9 works. I say for the first time because, of course, I mean, also for us, which we visited and we took care and we follow the participants in all their 9 projects, it never happened to have a complete vision of all the projects together because, okay, you go to Taranto and you see one, then you go to Naples and you see another one. So in the pavilion, it was the first time in which we could compare, see, or in a way relate the one to the other. Going back to the floor plan, let's say you see the white squares, which are the spaces occupied by the 9 artworks, which have been displayed on purpose on a hyper-simplified map of Italy. Yet a map of Italy which is a bit unconventional compared to how one might think, since as you can see is squeezed. So as you can see, like basically the north and south are very, very close. So Trieste and Taranto, which are generally at 1,000 kilometers distance, are instead extremely close. And of course, this was a sort of provocation in terms of geopolitical terms but this is another story. It was more a message for our country. Let's say that just to let you understand a bit how we deal with the exhibition design, which was basically done with nothing, was basically a more a strategy. It was basically a strategy which was dealing with doing nothing in the first space, the organization of the artworks in the second one, an organization where was, as I was saying, led and guided by the simplified shape of Italy, whose layout was marked on the ground with a reflective graphic in a kind of Dogville. I don't know if you are familiar with the movie. Dogville-like theatrical environment aiding the navigation. A navigation which was open, with no walls, rooms, or vertical interruptions, so that visitors could enjoy the view of the space in its entirety. And each installation actually has found a particular and peculiar strategy to translate what has done in the previous months in the territories into the exhibition. So some of them made a copy, Some of them brought a piece of the exhibition. Some other, I don't know, decided to bring just one piece. Some other decided to find, let's say, to ask, let's say, the community in the territories where the work was actually constructed to be borrowed for 6 months to the Venice Biennale, to be then come back to the territories. So there were like, was interesting to see how actually the 9 projects, in fact, created sort of 9 words, and which were extremely complicated and very, very different the one to the other, which were actually impossible to be displayed, like this complexity in a pavilion. This is the reason why we decided, on the contrary, to go for simplicity and try to be as much clear as possible, and try to be as let's say, and try to go and in a kind of straightforward way. Lastly, yet maybe one of the most important support of the installation in Venice were the true projection, which we displayed here in the map. So basically here and here, which let's say was let's say, a generative video installation that collected more than 1,000 clips that Alterazione Video, which is this art collective with whom we work since many years, realized, documenting each of the 9 open construction sites. So basically showing a direct connection between the synthetic artworks within the pavilion and their real counterpart, so how the real projects happen in the previous months in the territories. In general, also in this case, the pavilion was done with almost nothing, has been dismantled, recovering completely the materials which inhabited it. Some of them, in fact, borrowed, returned to the providers. Some others have been donated to the communities in the territories. And some others became part of the collection of the museum with whom they have collaborated. And finally, some others also have been sold to raise funds for the project they were working on in the allocated territories. So this was also part of the strategy overall. And this is it. Thank you.
Thank you, Claudia. We also wanted to give you an opportunity to ask questions. Of course, this is not mandatory, but it's a good chance. Thank you for the lecture. I will start maybe to relax the atmosphere. You said that your Fosbury jump is a kind of debriefing any task you receive, and switch any question to your own question. Can you please, I understand that that was a silver lining through the whole lecture, but can you please tell us one example very representing that concept, that method in your practice?
Yeah, well, I think that, I don't know if it was maybe clear or not, but it was like, I think it also changed a lot in let's say, in our story. I guess it's more like an attitude towards the work. I think that at the beginning, this fanzine as exemplified with, okay, we want to print it, we don't know how to print it, okay, let's find a way which, or with the competitions, we thought, I don't know, that, let's say, trying to think a bit out of the box or try to find your own way to look at things, to do things a bit, I don't want to say differently, but probably, I mean, giving a reason to them, not just because I want to do it differently, but try to make an effort to do not reply to what you are asked in the most obvious way. I think that somehow was appreciated, I think, and especially I think we enjoyed the most. So not exactly doing what you are required to do, but having the freedom to, let's say, try something else. And I think that at the beginning, especially, we could do so because a bit differently from now, because until actually a few years ago, Fosbury as collective. So now there is a sort of shift, because for a long time, Fosbury was considered as a collective. By collective, I mean, as I was also saying, a platform where we could feel free to do the project we liked, only the thing we liked. So as we know, work is not always like that. Since we were doing other job aside, these allow us to have this kind of naive approach and this kind of freedom. Since a few years, especially after Biennale, we are, the five of us, focused on this. I mean, we teach, but this is another story, so our attention is mainly on Fosbury, is our work, so it's our job. But still, I think that there is this, there is still this sort of mechanism to try, at least, because then when you have clients, you can always proceed in the way you wish. But at least we try always to start from a different perspective, or to let them see the potential in other, in looking and doing things a bit differently. And probably it's also the reason why I was so much interested in the garage. But this is like the workshop we are doing also with the students, because I don't know, it's somehow switched something in my mind, and I thought, I don't know, I think that there is I saw potential in there, as you guys are saying, and yeah.
What was the most difficult part while participating in Biennale? Working with context, or maybe the manifesto that would make your work stood out of any other works?
You mean like the Venice Pavilion now?
Yeah.
No, I think it was. I think it was everything together. I think that probably the most stressing thing was related to the responsibility you have, basically. I don't know if you know a bit how it works with the Venice Biennale, but yeah, basically the pavilion are a sort of embassies of each country. And so these pavilions are property of the different countries. And they have a different legislation, country by country. The Italian one, compared to others, one of the issues they have is that they really have an extremely low budget. And these basically didn't let us leave for many months. At the same time, apart from this, I think that dealing with the projects was in fact like extremely, let's say, tiring, but was probably the most, let's say, the most interesting, the most important, the most, the things in which we feel the most grateful, because then we could see, let's say, the results. The nice thing is that many of these projects actually kept going after, and they are still keep going. Like 2 days ago, I received a call from a couple, like a project, let's say, a practitioner and a design and an artist which working together in Trieste, and they were updating us about the fact that the project is kept going and they are now finding other funds to keep the project going on. So these, of course, are let's say the most satisfying parts. The most difficult ones, I think, was indeed like letting everything work together. So giving them freedom, giving them the possibility to actually feel free, but at the same time following the guidelines given by the states, Italy. At the same time, let's say, be in time, because actually, I don't know how and why, like the time you have to develop the project, it's shorter and shorter. So this is making like things very, very difficult. I mean, I think it was extremely difficult. I mean, it was the most difficult thing I've done in my life. It was extremely stressful. If you ask me, will you go back? No. I mean, I'm happy it's over. I'm happy it's done. It was also nice. I mean, we were extremely grateful, but it was extremely difficult, I think, altogether. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Claudia. We can actually continue asking questions in the courtyard if it is more convenient for you, or just drink something at Tigran's place. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
See
you
every day here from 4 to 8. And guys, Bogdan and Claudia are going to be here also tomorrow. You're welcome to see the opening, the presentation of workshop and so on. Very, very unofficial history. That's why you're welcome every day. Thank you, Claudia.
Thank you.